that said, when you get into church history, and there's different fragments, and again, we could spend weeks on this discussion, but I think it's valuable to share with you a little bit of, fragments of church history to show you that very much the early church grabbed hold of what was left to us, not just in the Torah, but in the New Testament. And they implemented this on a very practical level. And I'll give you an example, beginning with kind of the negative side of things, that when you come into the second century, and mid-second century, late second century into the third century, you come to the writings of Tertullian, and specifically his prescription against heretics. One of the things that the early church, and it wasn't just Tertullian, but one of the things that the early church had to deal with that they classified as heresy was women coming into the churches, crossing that line to sit in a seat that they have not been ordained to sit in, such as, your episcopos and your teachers. And when you look at what Tertullian writes, it's worth sharing with you. He says the following. He says, "The very women of these heretics, how wanton they are, for they are bold enough to teach, to even dispute, and to go as far as to baptize." Now, all of these were explicit functions of those who were called biological men who met the requirements. They were, as episcopos or even a diakonos, a deacon, they were to fulfill those roles. And yet Tertullian is saying that these heretical groups came out and they blurred those lines. And it was what we would call today, very much so, gender dysphoria. We don't want that spiritual version of gender dysphoria to creep into the church, but this did happen very early on in the church.